Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com coming to you from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, alongside Tony Tsoukalis and Tyler Waldrop. How you guys doing? You guys surviving the quarantine? It's day, I don't even know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day of the week it is anymore.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well.
Tyler, you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. So it's April, and that's about all I got. I don't know what day. I don't know what the date is, or I think it's a Tuesday, maybe. I don't know.
Monday.
Well, anyways, thanks for joining us today. We're coming to you, and we got a couple of things to talk about today. Tony wrote an article that I kind of wanted to lead off the show with, and it's 5 Crimson Tide players who are missing spring practice the most. And I thought it was relevant, just considering you have these early enrollees who get to Tuscaloosa, start working with the team, start getting acclimated to the program, and now they cannot practice together. So first guy is obviously Bryce Young, and we had a story on him recently by Tony talking to Craig Young, his father, who I thought it was a great article. If you missed it, go to BamaInsider.com. But obviously, Bryce Young, not being here, he's going to, miss battling out with Mac Jones. Another player he added, William Anderson. From an outside linebacker's perspective, we were pretty excited to see William Anderson. Talk about William Anderson, Tony.
Yeah, he's a guy that was making a lot of waves late in the recruiting process, really jumped up and was one of the best, highest rated players in Alabama's class, and a player that was at a position that Alabama really needed someone to break out at. They're losing their top 2 pass rushers and Anthony Jennings and Terrell Lewis. So there's openings at either the Jack or the Sam linebacker position. And you look at a guy like Will Anderson, proven pass rusher at the high school level, and a guy that really you would think be able to make that step. That step becomes a little bit harder now that he doesn't have the spring to kind of get those reps in, get acclimated to the next level. I think he's a guy, you look at these elite prospects who could really jump out and maybe earn a starting spot off the bat. That might be a little bit harder now, depending on, what they're given. I mean, is there going to be a summer session that can kind of help them out, or is it just going to be fall camp? If it's just fall camp, Alabama's had players do that before, but it's a difficult process to just go from one fall camp and then break in and be an instant impact.
Tyler, for you, Trey Sanders is a guy, is a running back. He was hurt all last season, comes back and looks like he's healthy. Everyone was excited to see what he can finally do from a healthy standpoint. You probably even excited to see what he could do, just considering, we just brought you on, you're back on the beat. From him missing spring ball, maybe it doesn't hurt him too much, but what were you looking forward to from seeing a running back like Trey Sanders?
Yeah, so I was actually surprised that, when I went to look at Tony's list, that Trey Sanders was on the list. And then I remembered, oh, yeah, Trey Sanders, he didn't have a spring last year. He's a guy, he needs the reps more than anybody of the guys that have been on the team already, other than these early enrollees, coming off an injury, didn't have a spring, just had a fall camp, which ended with him getting injured. So, yeah, he kind of needed as many reps as he can to kind of prove himself. And, yeah, I definitely wanted to see him, a guy that's supposed to be this talented, a guy that talked pretty big heading into his freshman season at Alabama. I'd like to see him back it up a little bit. And now, we have to wait till hopefully the summer.
Yeah, I think when you look at the running back room, we've talked about it several times. It's loaded with so much talent. I was curious just to kind of see Najee Harris now in that kind of senior format and Trey Sanders back being healthy. One more guy, Tony, that I want to talk about. I really like DeMarco Hellams. We've talked about him a couple times. I think he could be an instant impact player. But a guy you mentioned in the later part of your article was Darian Dalcourt. And if you don't know about Darian Dalcourt, he's one of Alabama's most talented linemen returning. And you're probably like, really? Considering the amount of talent they come back. The guy, it looks fantastic at practice as a freshman last season. What do you like about Darian Dalcourt, and where could you see him potentially cut in this season, Tony?
He's definitely a guy that would be in the mix for a starting offensive line spot. I think the one thing you got to look at is Evan Neal is likely going from left guard to right tackle. So you're looking to fill not really the right tackle spot, but really the left guard spot. So how are you going to do that? I think there's 2 options when you look at that. One is putting Emil Ekiyor Jr. in left guard. You got your straight replacement right there. And the other one, given Darian Dalcourt's talent, would be to put him at center. He's more of a natural center, and then shift the guy like Lena Dickerson over to left guard. That's a popular theory, but that theory then puts Landon Dickerson at a new position, it puts Darian Dalcourt as a new starter, and it puts Evan Neal at a new position. That takes a lot of time to gel. So that's something I think could have really happened in the spring. You know, if they were to make that move in the spring, it would have probably given them more time to get acclimated to their new spots. Now, if you only have a fall, I'm not saying it's impossible at all. I think that they could still do that. It's still actually a viable possibility, but you might, I guess, kind of lean towards maybe just making a straight replacement with Ekiyor at left guard, just because that probably that requires less movement from everyone else. And so I think keeping Lena Dickerson at center might be more important now during the fall.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Landon Dickerson. I mean, he's coming back. I mean, he was big and nasty last season. I think Alabama's offensive line overall could actually be better during the 2020 season. So really curious to see how that all unfolds. But I was glad that you put on Darian Dalcourt. If you've been following BamaInsider.com, we've been running a greatest under Nick Saban player tournament. I encourage you guys to go vote in the Final Four, which is wrapping up here pretty soon. Our Final Four consisted of Derrick Henry versus Mark Ingram and Tua Tagovailoa versus Julio Jones. Tyler, we'll go to you next. Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram. I mean, geez, you know, it's almost an embarrassment of riches when you talk about Alabama running backs. Who's your pick, Derrick Henry or Mark Ingram?
So absolutely an embarrassment of riches is what I was thinking right before you said that. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be Derrick Henry. It's hard to make an argument for Mark Ingram. He was first, but the numbers favor Henry. Henry carried the ball, I think, 90 times in back-to-back weeks against Auburn and Florida the year he won the Heisman. I mean, 90 carries in 8-day stretch. That's insane.
Tony. I mean, let's talk about Derrick Henry. That game against Auburn, what was it, 46 carries? I mean, what do you remember about that game and about Derrick Henry at the college level?
Yeah, the thing about Derrick Henry is he could take over a game. If you were arguing on the Mark Ingram side, and I would totally pick Derrick Henry too, but Mark Ingram also had those kind of games. You think you could look back to the South Carolina game where they didn't even let Greg McElroy touch the ball basically on one drive where I think they had 5 direct snaps to Mark Ingram, and then they finally ran a toss to him at the goal line. So you had those dominant moments from both guys, but when you look at Derrick Henry, I think I pick him just because Alabama was going to go into a game running it like 40 times to him, and the defense knew it, and they just couldn't stop it, you know? And he wasn't just a bulldozer. He could separate in space. He's truly just a freak athlete. He's done it in the NFL. We didn't make a guideline in this tournament, but I don't necessarily look at the NFL as much, but he's done it at both levels where he was a star at Alabama, and he's now been a star at the NFL. I think that matters to some people as well. So, I definitely think, you know, he would have been in my final when I was making this tournament, you know, and doing the seedings. I thought he would reach the final anyway. So he'd definitely be my pick.
Yeah, not surprising to see Derrick Henry going on to the championship round if he does beat out Mark Ingram. Tua Tagovailoa versus Julio Jones. And this was kind of interesting because Tua, the career that he had at Alabama, I mean, and the numbers that he put up were just ridiculous. I know towards the end of his career at Alabama, got kind of bumpy with his injuries. Going up against Julio Jones, who, you know, has really more flourished in the NFL. Tony, we'll start with you on this one. Tua or Julio Jones, greatest under Nick Saban at Alabama?
Well, first of all, the fans decided Julio Jones on this one, which I think was a little bit of a surprise because I would have picked Tua. I think when you look at the career that both of them had, Tua just had the numbers. I mean, I think Tua might be the best player Alabama's ever had any era, not under Saban. But Julio's a great athlete. He's done it in the NFL. I think he did it. He had a better career in the NFL than he had at Alabama. He didn't have the offense that Alabama has today. So I think that's, you know, it's a little bit unfair to judge him number-wise, but I think he really accelerated his career in the NFL. So if we're just going of what he meant to the Saban program, you know, the Saban years, I think Tua, you know, did more. But you could look at it from the way, too, that Julio started all this. You know, he was the first big-time recruit, you know, to commit under Saban. And I think without Julio, maybe none of this happens. So I think that's what a lot of fans were thinking as well when they picked him.
Tyler, you've been around, and one thing that I feel is really interesting about Tua is just the fascination with Tua. It was like Tua madness when he was here. After the national championship game against Georgia, I've never seen anything like it. A player that everybody was so excited about. What do you remember about Tua specifically during his time at Alabama, and then give us kind of your take between Tua and Julio Jones?
When you look at Tua, you could almost pick any game and you're going to find a play or two that you're just going to go say, wow, he made that throw. Or I remember that. The thing that jumps out to me is, I was on the field for the national championship game when he got put in the second half. But the thing that stands out to me is I was at the opener the next year against Louisville, and just watching him, he just came right out, and it's the same. It's like, it's one thing to make a big throw in a national championship game. It's another thing to make these ridiculous across your body throws in your first drive, in your first game as a starter. Like, he picked up and didn't, like, the pressure of trying to like replicate it, live up to the hype of the offseason didn't bother him at all. He came out, and in my opinion, he delivered. I was more impressed with him after he beat up on that admittedly really bad Louisville team. But yeah, I would also agree with Tua. I think Julio Jones is still the most talented player to play for Alabama, perhaps ever, definitely in the Saban era. But I just think, Julio Jones wasn't consistent. There wasn't, some of that was injuries, some of that was the offense, but there were plenty of games when Julio Jones wasn't a big factor. Tua was basically the deciding factor in his entire career. So I think you got to go with him.
All right. For more on the greatest under Nick Saban, go to BamaInsider.com. Be sure and participate. We're almost wrapped up. So it's been a fun tournament to track. Last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is the freshmen that you are excited to see when practice does resume. And that's, a true freshman, obviously, that we're always excited to see the freshmen when they come to Alabama, especially in this early enrolling time for the springtime. Tony, we'll start with you. One freshman that you're really excited to see when practice does pick up.
I think I'm going to pick the obvious and go with Bryce Young, just because of what he can mean to this offense if he was to come in and hit full stride. He's a guy that can do anything. Really dynamic player. I think a future Heisman contender once he gets, under center behind Alabama. And I'm just really excited to see what the hype is about. I think we've seen the highlights. We've seen everything he can do with his feet and with his arm, but just getting to see that with, the Alabama offense, getting to see him complete passes to Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. And I think it could be really, just really amazing to watch.
What about you, Tyler? What do you think when you look at the list of freshmen, that are not only early enrolled, but guys who are just true freshmen? Who are you really excited to see?
So, obviously Bryce is a good pick. William Anderson's a good pick, but I'm actually going to go with Christian Story, who I went and interviewed. I guess it feels like 2 or 3 months ago, but I think it was like 3 weeks ago. The thing that interests me is, there's two things. One, safety is a position that even these young true freshmen are going to get to compete in, just because there's not a lot of depth there. They may not win the job now, but they're going to be in the mix. And Story, while splitting time at quarterback and safety in high school, he had, I think, 28 career interceptions. He has a tendency to be where the ball is going to be. He made some big plays in high school on that side of the ball, but also the Alabama high school record for touchdowns, 175 total, over 13,000 yards. Saban, Christian's dad told me in an interview that, Saban has said, Christian, hey, maybe don't pigeonhole yourself at quarterback or safety. I might want you to play somewhere else, suggesting maybe running back or wide receiver. I think he could play anywhere, and I'm excited to kind of see how that shakes out, where he ends up.
Hey, we want to hear from you in the comment box. Which freshman are you most excited to see when practice does resume? I think when you, look at this list. There's plenty of guys to look at. I think a guy like Chris Roswell, to see how developed he is coming in. I was really excited to see some of these linebackers coming in: Demoy Kennedy, William Anderson, Chris Roswell. A lot of these outside linebackers that I feel could potentially even, get a lot of playing time considering the depth at Alabama. We want to hear from you in the comment box. Which freshman are you excited to see most? Probably it's almost like other than Bryce Young, because I think everyone's going to say Bryce Young in the comment box. So, be curious to hear what you guys have to say. But I appreciate you guys watching our video today. Hopefully you guys have gained some insight and be sure and comment in the comment box. Be sure and like and subscribe. We appreciate you guys being here and subscribing to our channel and reading our content at BamaInsider.com. For Tony Tsoukalas, Tyler Waldrop, Kyle Henderson, BamaInsider.com. Catch you soon, BamaInsider.com.